I was listening to a soundbite from Jay Wright, who's a CBS broadcaster, who was the great coach at Villanova forever. And when I got a job in Vegas, Tark was replaced by Rolly Massimino and Jay Wright. He was the assistant, so we struck a friendship. He's a great guy. But in his bite, he was saying, I had no idea Jalen Brunson was going to be this good of an NBA player. So, like, when people project, you just don't know. And I've said they have totally different games, but Brunson is Steve Nash. I watched them in college, really good college players. Good, not superstars. Then they go to an NBA, and one's got Luka, one's got Dirk as the best player. They're the two. And then one goes to Phoenix, gets the perfect coach, Mike D'Antoni. One goes to New York and gets a defensive coach, Tibbs, and they totally pop. Nobody thought Nash was going to be a back-to-back MVP or he won 2 MVPs. Nobody thought that. And nobody thought Brunson, even if you thought he was a 1, you didn't think he was like a 1-1, like the great closer in the fourth. And it just goes to show, if you give people opportunities, you give them the right fit, you give them the right guidance and the roster. Now, Brunson's also lucky because it's not the star-studded league now. The final 4 teams we have, their best players are all guards. So because of the CBA and all the multiple aprons, you can't stack the rosters. So guard play, high IQ, EQ, distribute the ball, Halliburton, Jalen Brunson, that really is what the league is trying to do right now. So sometimes the sand moves in your favor beneath your feet. So I just think it's really interesting. In fact, let's go to Ric Bucher with that. He's joining us now live. Ric Bucher, as we get ready for the Western Conference Finals tonight. Rick, we were saying this, is that I always thought Brunson was a soft 1, probably a 2.
Yeah.
His shot making against Detroit and Boston, and I'm like, well, you can't have stacked rosters. Like those days are over.
Yeah.
Do you view him now as a legitimate big-time 1?
Legitimate big-time 1. Do I see him as a guy who could possibly win a championship as a guard? That to me is the question, because I've consistently said no. We've never seen a guy that size, that limited in athletic ability, be able to be the best player on a championship team. But as you noted, we're in different times right now, and there's going to be a guard-led team that is going to win a championship this year by default. And I think some of it is just because of the way that the game has changed, at least for what we're seeing right now. It reminds me of a conversation I had 4 or 5 years ago with Sam Presti, the GM of the Oklahoma City Thunder. And he felt then that because of the way the game was being played, that it was being played more up-tempo, faster, that it was no longer going to be a star-driven league in terms of playing for a championship, that depth and versatility was going to be the key to be a contender. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing with all 4 teams, including New York. The reason New York is where it is because Tibbs has come off of his, I'm only going to play 5.5 guys. Having Mitchell Robinson in the rotation, Miles McBride getting regular minutes, all of that has expanded their rotation, and as a result, they've survived to this point. So I've had to amend my perspective, as I have had to a couple of times over covering the league, where there's a big enough shift where you say, you know what, we've never seen this before, but we may see it for the first time.
So I actually think OKC they're kind of built to give Ant a little bit of trouble. They got length, they got versatility, they got a lot of guys, they have a lot of bodies. I think it's a 7-game series. I'll take OKC, home court advantage. Minnesota didn't have as much rest, has more rest tonight. I don't think it matters with OKC's versatility. But I do think Ant has been a big star slayer. It could be Luka, it could be LeBron, it could be Steph. This is what he's done. Durant and Booker. I think OKC is kind of built to give Ant a little trouble. What say you?
I'd say that they're built to give him a lot of trouble, and his performance during the regular season is a reflection of that. He averaged 5 points below his average against OKC, only shot 36%. OKC has been, without question, the number 1 defense in the postseason to this point. as you said, they have a lot of different bodies that they can throw at him, but they can also kind of confuse the floor. And that's where Ant traditionally has problems, where he has to kind of figure out exactly what is the defense doing in these situations. It tends to make him tentative. So when I look at the combination of the two, along with the fact that I believe that OKC has had to play, the Denver Nuggets did them a big favor. They had to play consistently good to great basketball in order to get through that series. They've had to play playoff basketball. I would argue that Minnesota is a bit delusional in terms of the level of basketball that they've played. They've had 2 gentlemen sweeps, and that might lead them to believe that they're playing great basketball. I haven't seen that, and I certainly haven't seen it consistently over the course of a game. I think they've played hard, maybe 38, 39 minutes out of every 48, and that's not going to cut it against Oklahoma City. From a talent perspective, I believe that Minnesota can go toe-to-toe, and I'm hoping that it'll be a 7-game series. But if OKC makes short work of Minnesota, I will not be surprised.
So, there's a lot of Giannis discussion, and we don't know where he's going to go. But I said Denver feels like they're in danger of becoming the Bucks, where they have one great player and they get old and expensive really fast. And I said the other day, I said, I don't think the Warriors are. First of all, they've drafted 2 guys, Pods and Post, who can both play in that ecosystem. Butler and Curry's history is, and Draymond, they're generally good playoff performers. And Kuminga was good enough without Steph that there is a market for him. I'm not sure what it is, but if they can get a big that's reasonable, I don't think they're a championship team. I think Denver could be Milwaukee if they don't make moves. Where are you on the Warriors in the Kuminga trade piece? Because somebody said, oh, let's go get Brook Lopez. I'm like, timeout. We don't need another mid-30-year-old guy. That's not the answer. Right? And they may have to give up Kuminga. They may have to give up Moody and Kuminga, another young, fairly productive guy. Where are you on the Warriors today going forward?
I think they'll still be competitive. I think that they'll be kind of where they've been, which is they're a play-in team, fringe, grabbing that last playoff spot, but not necessarily, or by any means, quite honestly, being a playoff contender. They're not going to fall off the cliff the way we saw the Lakers with Kobe toward the end, because, to your point, the supporting cast is a little bit better than that. And I just don't think that Steph and Draymond are going to stick around that much longer. I think we're going to see a year or 2 of them being very competitive, or as competitive as they've been. And then it'll be time for the Warriors to turn the page and go in another direction. With Denver, I'm with you there in terms of, if I'm looking at them, I clear the decks. I'm looking at, I've got Nikola Jokic, and I am redoing the rest of that team, even if it means that I have to sort of take a step back for a year or even possibly 2 in terms of restoring my ability to play for a title.
I want to go back to Indiana and the Knicks. Indiana plays fast. In fact, the last 3 years, fastest paced team in the league. The Knicks, conversely, last 2 years are the slowest paced team. But again, I think the NBA, the Knicks' slow pace benefited them against Boston, may have hurt them a little against Detroit because they kind of played into Detroit's hands. But what do you see as you juxtapose these two? Fastest pace, slowest pace. And I think the key to Indiana has been through the playoffs. They've controlled the pace of all the games they've played.
Yes, they have.
Where do you think it lands with the Knicks?
Physicality and the ability to control the tempo is going to mean everything in that series. There's no doubt about it. Indiana, I just believe that people are really sleeping on how good they are. They are legit. Andrew Nembhard, Aaron Nesmith, they just have a bunch of guys on the perimeter that most people don't know about who are legit players. And then Pascal Siakam, probably the most understated star that you can have. So it really is going to be a matter of matchups and pace. I have the Knicks coming out of that series, but I think that this is going to be a real dogfight. And again, this is what's kind of entertaining about these playoffs in general, is I can't wait to see these first game ones, much like some of the previous series. It's like, I think I know where these teams are, but the styles are so different. I need to see who's able to impose their will on the other team to really have a feel for which way the series is going to go.
So David Stern inherited the league from Larry O'Brien, and it didn't have star appeal. It wasn't dynamic. And so I understood he wanted collections of stars together. It was great for him. In fact, the Duncan dynasty hurt them. Shaq and Kobe was great. The Bulls, the best team ever. The stacked Lakers or Celtics. But that's because he inherited a league that didn't have that. The 70s NBA was a collection of good players, mostly not playing together. Silver inherits the NBA off of David Stern's league, which is stacked rosters. So I've argued this is finally, with a new CBA, this is Adam's league. This is exactly what he wants.
Yep.
Do you think it works? Because Stern knew the 70s didn't work with all the parity.
Yeah.
Do you think this works going forward?
Yeah, but we're in a totally different place. I think what David Stern did, what David Stern needed to do was he needed to get America to watch the NBA. and the way to attract the mainstream audience in America was to have recognizable names and a recognizable team that everybody was interested in watching. But while dynasties have worked for the NBA, parity has not over the last 20 or so years. The fact is that they've never worked better than they did with Michael Jordan and the Bulls. It's been diminishing returns ever since. Still better than the parity years, but nonetheless, not quite as good. The zenith was with Michael and the Bulls. What Adam has inherited is a league that is looking at it and saying, okay, we've gotten the most we can out of the American audience. And we're never going to beat the NFL. Where can we expand in a way? Where is our sweet spot? And it really is globally. And so parity works on that. If you're selling a product to an audience that, by and large, isn't necessarily going to be watching games, and if they are, they're going to be streaming them, then you want an array of flavors. It's a little bit like they've been the convenience store, and they wanted everybody coming to the convenience store when David Stern was running it. Now it's like we want to appeal to everybody for everything. We got to build Target. We got to build our big box building and draw an audience that way, because that's our advantage over the other professional leagues in the United States. That's what Adam Silver is doing. So if I can sell 1 million OKC jerseys this year, and I can sell 1 million Timberwolves jerseys next year, and I can get that global audience to be buying into all the different teams that I have a better chance of expanding my audience than simply having everybody wanting to watch LeBron.
I'm going to take Indiana in 6, OKC in 7. Where are you on that?
That's not a bad call. As I said at the very beginning, I'd like to see. I think OKC is coming out of the West. That's probably my prohibitive favorite, and I'm leaning New York. But as I said, I would not be the least bit surprised if the Pacers pull off what I consider an upset. All
right, Ric Bucher, as always, buddy, great seeing you.
You got it.
Not all dynasties work for the league. The Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker dynasty didn't work, and it wasn't really a market size. That Duncan was sort of personalityless. Manu was off the bench. It was just they weren't high draft picks. Manu, I think, was second round. Tony Parker, end of the first. And Duncan's nickname was the Big Fundamental. It doesn't scream Tom Cruise or Denzel. He was the Big Fundamental. So I've said this: Alabama's dynasty, I didn't think helped college football. It made it too regional. You're not going to get a dynasty in a small market in baseball. I think the NFL, it doesn't really matter. I say that. I do think the Chiefs have a big enough brand. They're in the middle of the country. I don't think Jacksonville as a dynasty would be great for the league. I don't. I think they're not as popular as the Buccaneers or the Dolphins in their own state. So they're not even that popular in their own town. They tarped off the upper deck and portions of it. So I do think in the NFL, you don't need New York. In baseball, you do need New York. In the NBA, you don't need New York. I don't think Utah or OKC being the reigning dynasty in the NBA would necessarily help. But don't forget, remember this, Jordan against the Jazz, is that still today the highest rated NBA finals? It may be. So Utah's got a basketball brand. It almost feels collegiate, as does OKC with their fervor, and it's a small town. We'll see how it plays out.